Welcome along to the Olive Grove podcast.
Hello, everyone.
This is where we take the sources you send us, and we really dig into them, try to pull out the key insights for you.
Yeah, kind of like a shortcut to understanding the important stuff.
Exactly. And today, based on your suggestion, we're diving into 1 Timothy chapter 3. It's a study from MCS 1 Timothy 3, and it really focuses on, well, leadership qualifications in a congregation, specifically looking at the idea of a virtual pastor in that source.
That's right. We got the material, and it's a really interesting look at these sort of foundational qualities for leaders in that context. And while the source frames it around this virtual pastor idea, the principles themselves, well, they offer some pretty timeless ideas about leadership that, honestly, anyone could find insightful, whatever your background.
Yeah, I think so too. You might even find some surprising angles on what makes a good leader.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's get into it. Verse 1, 1 Timothy 3.1. It starts, "Here is a statement you can trust. Anyone aspiring to be a congregation leader is seeking worthwhile work."
Right. It kicks off by saying, hey, wanting this role, that's actually a good thing. Paul sees it as worthwhile work.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
The source immediately follows up by making it clear that just wanting it isn't nearly enough. There are definite standards.
Which brings us straight to verse 2, where it starts listing them out. Must be above reproach, he must be faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled, orderly, hospitable, and able to teach. Let's take that first one. Above reproach. What's the source's take?
The source basically says this means you need to live in a way that doesn't give people legitimate grounds for criticism, especially things that would hurt your witness. Your life should kind of stand up to scrutiny.
Yeah, that makes sense. In any leadership role, really, trust and reputation are huge, aren't they? How would someone, say, in a business leadership role, think about being above reproach?
That's a great question. It really just speaks to integrity, doesn't it? Foundational stuff.
It does. Then it says, faithful to his wife. Now, the source here is pretty specific. It interprets this as meaning a man who isn't divorced or, cheating.
Right. It links it back to being above reproach, maintaining that positive witness. And we should definitely note that's the specific interpretation from this source material.
Absolutely. Important context.
It is. And, whatever the specific interpretation today, it shows how much importance this source puts on commitment, on fidelity as part of a leader's character and sort of public standing.
Okay. Then temperate and self-controlled. What's the difference there, or the nuance?
Well, the source explains them as showing control across the board, actions demonstrating discipline, balance, not flying off the handle.
And this idea of self-control, that seems valuable pretty much anywhere you're leading people, right?
Yeah.
Managing a team, guiding a community.
Oh, absolutely. Being able to stay calm, make considered decisions instead of just reacting, that's crucial leadership anywhere. Then orderly.
Right. The source suggests this points to a life that isn't, chaotic. Someone who's got their act together, basically, shows responsibility, stability.
Yeah, the idea being if you can bring order to your own life, maybe you can help bring structure to a larger group.
Makes sense.
And hospitable.
Yeah, that's about being welcoming, open to people, whether you know them well or not. It's about the relational side.
Definitely. Being approachable, willing to connect, seems pretty fundamental for building community or leading a team effectively. And the last one in this verse, able to teach. So being able to communicate clearly, share understanding.
Exactly. In a broader sense, explaining things well, mentoring, that's a key leadership skill, isn't it? Whether it's a complex idea or just guiding your team.
Totally agree. Okay, moving to verse 3. This lists things the leader shouldn't be. He must not drink excessively or get into fights. Rather, he must be kind and gentle. He must not be a lover of money. Right. And the source really zeroes in on that last one, not be a lover of money. It's quite critical, actually, of modern pastors who seem to display a lot of wealth.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It contrasts that sharply with its view of a God-called leader, suggesting chasing riches as a sign your priorities might be off.
Which kind of echoes broader ethical ideas, doesn't it? Avoiding conflicts of interest, putting the group's well-being ahead of personal gain. You see that in professional codes everywhere.
You really do. And the verse also stresses being kind and gentle, not aggressive or prone to excessive drinking. Paints a picture of someone approachable, peaceful.
Not adding to the drama.
Exactly.
Okay, then verses 4 and 5 extend this to family life. He must manage his own household well, having children who obey him with all proper respect. For if a man can't manage his own household, how will he be able to care for God's messianic community?
Yeah, the logic the source pulls out is pretty straightforward. Managing your own family well is seen as like a prerequisite for leading the larger community, what the source calls God's messianic community.
It suggests leadership starts at home, basically. Personal responsibility.
Right. Creating stability in your own little world first. It does make you think, doesn't it? Maybe the challenges in leading bigger groups often reflect struggles closer to home.
It's a fascinating point. If you can't handle the complexities at home, how can you handle the community? Then verse 6 adds another layer. He must not be a new believer, because he might become puffed up with pride and thus fall into the same judgment as did the adversary.
So the danger highlighted by the source is pride, especially in someone new to leadership in the faith. The worry is that a lack of deep grounding could lead straight to arrogance.
Needs time to mature, basically.
Seems to be the idea. It speaks to needing a solid foundation, some maturity, before taking on big responsibilities. You see that in lots of fields.
It's a warning, really. Neat experience. Okay, verse 7 looks outwards. Furthermore, he must be well regarded by outsiders, so that he won't fall into disgrace and into the adversary's trap.
Right. So it's not just about what the congregation thinks. Your reputation, your integrity has to extend beyond that circle.
So even people who don't share the faith should see the leader positively.
That's what the source suggests, yeah. To avoid damaging the community's reputation, this idea of maintaining a good reputation outside your group that feels relevant for any public-facing leader, surely.
Absolutely. It just reinforces that above-reproach idea, but widens the scope. Okay, now verse 8 shifts focus a bit to Shemashim.
Yeah, and the source explains that this Hebrew word literally means servant. It corresponds to what we often call deacons.
So like assistant leaders, support roles.
Kind of, focusing on practical service, maybe freeing up the main pastor for teaching and spiritual guidance. That's the picture the source paints.
Got it. And interestingly, the qualifications, pretty similar to the pastors. Verse 8 says, likewise, the Shemashim must be of good character, people whose word can be trusted. They must not give themselves to excessive drinking or be greedy for dishonest gain.
Yeah, see? Good character, trustworthy, avoiding excess, no greed. It echoes the earlier points. High ethical standards for everyone in leadership.
Right. Then verse 9 adds, they must possess the formerly hidden truth of the faith with a clean conscience.
So this highlights they need to be, really grounded in their beliefs, holding on to the core faith principles with integrity, a clean conscience about it.
Deep commitment needed. Okay, verse 10 talks about selecting them. And first, let them be tested. Then, if they prove themselves blameless, let them be appointed Shemashim.
And the source interprets blameless here by linking it to the Hebrew word tam.
Tam.
Yeah, which it describes as meaning gentle and loving. So the idea is you watch them for a while, see these qualities demonstrated before appointing them.
Okay, so proving themselves over time. Then verse 11 turns to the wives of these Shemashim. Similarly, the wives must be of good character, not gossips, but temperate, faithful in everything.
Which really underlines how the leader's household, the family unit, is seen as significant. Character matters across the board.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme. And verse 12 brings it back to the Shemashim themselves. Let the Shemashim each be faithful to his wife, managing his children and household well. Again, just like the pastors.
Exactly, mirroring those requirements.
And verse 13 offers a kind of reward or outcome. For those who serve well as Shemashim gain good standing for themselves and much boldness in the trust that comes through Yeshua the Messiah.
Right. The source sees this as saying, look, serve faithfully in this role, and you'll gain respect, confidence, maybe opportunities for more growth in the community.
Okay, makes sense. Now, as we get near the end of the chapter, verses 14 and 15, they spell out why Paul is writing all this.
Yeah, he says, I hope to visit you soon, but I am writing these things so that if I'm delayed, you may know how one should behave in the household of God.
Which is the messianic community of the living God, the pillar and support of the truth. So these aren't just random rules. They're guidelines for how the community should function healthily.
Precisely. It's about maintaining the integrity and the witness of the community itself.
And then it wraps up with verse 16, which is a powerful statement of faith.
It really is. Great beyond all question is the formerly hidden truth underlying our faith. He was manifested physically and proved righteous spiritually, seen by angels and proclaimed among the nations, trusted throughout the world, and raised up in glory to heaven.
Wow. The source points out this is just a foundational declaration of belief.
Yeah, a powerful anchor for everything else, reminding them of the core beliefs and maybe Yeshua as the ultimate example of righteousness.
So, pausing here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really detailed look at 1 Timothy chapter 3, digging into the source's view on leadership qualities. Definitely gives you a lot to think about regarding leadership more broadly.
It really does. These ancient guidelines, through the lens of this source, offer a fascinating window into the expectations for leaders in that specific spiritual community.
And, that actually brings us to a point where we want to invite you, our listener, to connect a bit more. If you're looking for that kind of connection, maybe a supportive online space, we really encourage you to check out the My Christian Space community.
Yeah, it's a great place to connect with others, share what you're learning, and just continue exploring your faith journey together.
Definitely worth looking into.
And also, we wanted to highlight the incredible work of Enduring Freedom Ministries. Their goals are just so practical and impactful.
They really are. They aim to provide things like a hot meal, groceries, clothing, even a haircut and laundry services for people who need it.
And get this, for a suggested donation of just $4 a month, you can actually cover those costs for one person. $4.
It's amazing how much difference that small amount can make. It's a really tangible way to help someone out.
Absolutely. Worth considering if you're looking for a way to give back.
So, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it leaves me wondering, how might these ancient principles we've discussed, integrity, self-control, reputation, managing things well, that service aspect, how might they still offer valuable insights for leaders today, in all sorts of contexts, really, regardless of someone's specific beliefs?
That's the big takeaway question, isn't it, for you, the listener, to think about? Because those underlying values, integrity, self-control, looking out for others, having a good reputation, they seem pretty timeless.
Well said. It's been a fascinating exploration.
It has.
Thank you for joining us. And hey, to make sure you catch our future deep dives and often get them early, make sure you subscribe to the Olive Grove podcast on YouTube.
And definitely visit the My Christian Space website, too. That's where you can find early access to these deep dives.
We look forward to exploring another source with you next time.